My name is Chris Hoffman.
I'm Lisa Robinette, and I wanted to share my experience of the Intuitive Intensive with Crystal Anne Compton and Tricia Carr.
The Intuitive Intensive was life-changing.
I truly believe that the program is life-changing.
Life-changing. There we go, done. Life-changing.
I am a intuitive reader, channel, and a psychic development teacher and coach. These are not words that I thought I would be describing myself as at the beginning of 2018. Sitting here as a graduate of the Intuitive Intensive, I can tell you how powerful the teachings are of Crystal Anne Compton, the founder of the Lightworkers Lab, and Tricia Carr. Sorry. I do love them so very much, and I am so grateful for the teachings that they have taught me through this course.
Sign up for the Intuitive Intensive. Just keep saying yes and be open and go forward with your heart and with love, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Really fun.
Welcome to Charmed Life, a multimedia podcast discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I am your host, Tricia Carr. Welcome to this episode of Charmed Life. And I have, once again, it's like Crystal Anne Compton season. It's my favorite season. People say, what's your favorite season? Mine is Crystal Anne Compton. Well, I mean, I guess my whole life is Crystal Anne Compton, but for me, actually getting to bring her to you guys, platform her on this show, we tend to go in seasons, don't we?
We do.
And often it is because we're talking about the Intuitive Intensive, and other times it's just because we remember and we're like, oh, hey, let's take some of this cool stuff that we're talking about back and forth on our WhatsApp.
Absolutely. Why not? We talk about such awesome things. Might as well share it with the people because I know they love it too.
That's right. And let's start off with a little bit of the Intuitive Intensive, and we're going to get into the wacky, wild fun. It's wacky and wet and wild, what we were talking about today. We decided to really get funky.
Yeah, talk about the things people really love to ask about and the things that fascinate me, which are ghosts and 4D stuff and spirits, but we'll get to that. Let's talk about the intensive first. I am excited. It starts on February 3rd, 2020. Mm-hmm. So we have like a week and a half, right?
I know. I'm so excited. My schedule is all blocked out, doing all the prep. Every single step of it is so much fun. We have the private community, the study community for this program already up and running and reeling. And one of the students who has never been in any of our programs before, and she actually hasn't even joined, I don't know if she's joined the Lightworkers Lab yet. And so if you're the first time you're listening to Charmed Life, I digress a little bit. First time listening, my name is Tricia Carr. I am a multidimensional medium, channel, animal communicator. I'm a hypnotherapist and a spiritual teacher. And this is my lovely best friend, Crystal Anne Compton. We are collaborators. Crystal is an intuitive channel and teacher. What else are you? A mama of Great Danes.
I'm a wonderful person. No, I'm the founder of the Lightworkers Lab, which is an online spiritual community. I have a YouTube channel with about 40 or 45,000 subscribers, content creator. I'm into metaphysics and spirituality, and that's the kind of stuff I like to talk about and teach upon.
And you've been psychic your whole life. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I was just like, you've been psychic your whole life.
Yeah.
You've been working with this, what we're talking about, 4D. But yes, what we are doing, you go ahead. I interrupted you.
Well, no, what we are doing, the Intuitive Intensive is a Lightworkers Lab program, but this is something that you and I have collaborated on from the very beginning. Our fingerprints are all over it. And in the Intuitive Intensive, we talk about everything psychic, everything spiritual. Really, we go from the foundation, which is who it is that we are as spiritual beings. We talk about all of our abilities. And as we always say, what you need to understand is you do have abilities, whether they're latent or dormant or non-present at this time. You are a magical being. And the first thing we do, first order of business in the Intuitive Intensive, is we connect you with the power of that. We start turning on the mainframe, discussing clairs, our different faculties, mediumship, channeling, dream work, the whole nine. We get all the way into it. And we also have 4 weeks of group coaching attached to the program where students can learn about intuitive readings and also begin to give and receive intuitive readings with the rest of the student body. So it's a fantastic, dynamic, dare I say, life-shifting program. And if you're not a part of it, you better register, because we only have a week out
yeah. And you know, people join at all levels of development, experience, and just curiosity is all that you need to bring. We have it as an immersive education, just really being in all of this fantastic, amazing information that will feel to the person when you are relaxed, and just again with that open curiosity, it will feel very natural and very, very much, as Oprah says, so many aha moments. And I challenge anyone to come in and not find 1,000 things that they resonate with. I mean, as in, yes, apparently I am interested in mediumship, and maybe I am. Maybe I would like to experience being a medium, whether for myself, just for living that magical life, or for, you know, actually working with others it's not based around becoming a professional, but so many of our students just do, because the reason that happens is the same reason why it happened for me, is because you start to open up to this and it becomes so important, so interesting, the most interesting thing in your whole life. And you're like, well, people got to eat, so I guess I have to do this as a job because I want to do nothing else.
Right. Well, and I think your hint is, if it fascinates you now, if you are interested in the intuitive arts or in the world of metaphysics and kind of want to find your place in that world, that's kind of a clue that this might be something that you're going to be doing, not necessarily professionally, but maybe that you're being called to step into, even if it's just to really actualize your own potential. And we've discussed this before, but it bears repeating that intuition and psychic ability and spiritual connection is, of course, fantastical and, again, magical, but it's also really natural and it's really practical. And you'll notice when you're part of a program like this, that as you're dealing with the content and integrating just the energy of it, your whole life begins to arrange itself around the material, and things begin to shift, not just magical things, but things in relationships, things in your career, things in your belief system and your patterns on the inside. All of that stuff starts to accommodate the higher vibration coming in. And so you come in a certain way, but you leave completely transformed, if that is something you are open to. And of course, that's so important. You really receive from this program what you bring into it. But if you bring in the intention and you bring in that dedication, no matter your level, you don't have to know anything. But if you bring that curiosity and openness into the program, you're going to change, period, for the better.
I know when I was in my development, before I met you even, and however I was developing, I still had another career and everything, and I did start to, my career, which I had felt was definitely set in a certain way. You know, I had to work all of this time and in this way, and all of the challenges and battles and resistance, even though I really, really loved it overall. I thought that it was set. But the second that I started to, like, one of the first things I did was shift my intention and my life into having a daily devotional practice, meditation, a daily morning meditation. And the next thing I know, before I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to effort. I just wanted to do it because it felt so good, and it was improving everything about my life and my state. And my life just started to shift. That job, without me trying, started to change. And my mornings opened up so that it was never, ever again a challenge. I shouldn't say, like, every now and again you have international travel, so you always seem to have to get up at 4 a.m. Like, that's twice per year. But other than that, the job and my whole lifestyle started to shift around those intentions and the ways that I let those intentions embody and inhabit and take precedence in my life and in my being, and everything just shifted around it. That's the magic. That's who we are as magical beings. And another thing that I recognized was, like, challenging relationships. Like, my husband has an old longtime friend, and he and I really loved him, but we would have challenging times where I felt like he was being misogynistic or blah, blah, whatever. It doesn't matter. there's no way anyone could tell who I'm talking about, just so you know. He doesn't listen. Anyway, and I had the labels that I had given him, and I would be kind of like cringing when we were going to spend time because I didn't know if it was going to be one of the good times or one of the times where I felt like we were going to argue. And then like my life had shifted so much, my state, how I approached life, and I just approached with curiosity about who he was as a light. And what do you know? Our relationship is just everything positive when we just support and help one another. And it's really amazing, like how your life can change in all of the mundane areas besides seeing ghost entities and thought forms.
Well, it's really true that our material world, your physicality, your experience in the world is an outpicturing of what's happening on the inside. And so if you are working sounds hard, but if you are engaging your spiritual connection, and if you are immersing yourself, leaning into what we're talking about here, you're changing your frequency, your literal vibration, and the universe truly does conspire for your good. And it always is going to do that arrangement around your frequency. And so these relationships that may be problematic or a little troubling start to resolve themselves, and or they'll cycle out of the experience, which sometimes is just as good as having it healed or repaired. The last thing I just really quickly want to say about the intuitive intensive, I don't know if you've ever been in college courses where you get in there, you meet your professor, and this professor is just not interested in the curriculum. They're just going through the motions. Totally. It's monotone. They're dead inside. That is not the intuitive intensive. When I tell you that Tricia and I are so excited about the content, not just because of what we are through us, what's being offered to the students, but because it changes us as well. And this is all the stuff we love to talk about. This is all the stuff that shows up in our personal lives. We talk about it as friends, and we just love the opportunity to teach it. And I can't say enough about it. And if you are interested, please check it out. The link is learn.lightworkerslab.com/2020 for intuitive intensive. We break it down week by week. We tell you what you're going to be learning, and you can still register. So please do if you're interested.
And the last thing I will say about it, even though I'm like just talking about it gets me excited.
I'm getting excited right now. I'm like hopping around. Yeah, the vibe.
And just feeling like how doing this work together. And when I say together, I mean everyone, including all of the students. The students are co-creating. It is so freaking magical because you will see bubble up in the community of the students all of the things that we are seeing in the world, in our families, and in a positive way, like synchronicities and evidences. And so we kind of have two hubs for it. One is a dedicated student portal on a website, and then one is the student community where there is fellowship and expression, and that's hosted in a Facebook group, private group on Facebook for the students only. And so that group is up and running now, as I was saying earlier. And one of the students who joined has not joined the Lightworkers Lab, which you should if you haven't yet. Go find it on Facebook. Lightworkers Lab is a Facebook group. And this is her first program with Crystal and me. And she's like, she just reported to me like on the side, like, oh my gosh, I'm loving this group so much. And I'm like, oh girl, you don't even know. It's just
even begun to get awesome.
Yeah. People come away with lifelong friends. All of us do. And it's really just beautiful. So, well, now let's talk about the wackadoodle stuff that we had planned today.
Okay.
Let's start with, we've said a couple of times 4D. Now, a lot of people who listen to this program are like all about it, know exactly what they're talking about, that 4D. We're saying fourth dimension. I would love to hear you describe, and however you want, like, what is the fourth dimension? And then I'll describe it to me and see how we compare and overlap.
Okay. The fourth dimension is first and foremost a portal dimension. So for example, when we pass from this life, we die, we go immediately into a dimensional space. And this is not necessarily our ultimate destination. This is where we see the tunnel of light that many people talk about. And we go through that tunnel of light right there in 4D. However, not every spirit, not every soul actually makes the journey into the light, into another dimension, which I personally believe is 5D, or the fifth dimension. The fourth dimension is kind of a train station where there's a lot of activity for our 3D reality. There's a lot of activity that impacts us here, but there's also just a lot of higher dimensional beings and lower dimensional beings, and also beings, I believe, from parallel universes that use this portal in 4D to interact with our universe, and in particular with 3D, so our experience. So there's a lot going on. I liken it to that cantina scene or that bar scene in Star Wars. You walk in, there's just all kinds of crazy creatures going on. There's a party, lots of noise, and it's easy kind of to get lost there if you're not necessarily paying attention. 4D is also where you're going to find the beings that we would call ghosts, or the beings that are in actuality earthbound spirits, and that simply means that they are, for whatever reason, I'm going to use the word choosing, but it's sometimes not a choice. They are, for whatever reason, choosing to stay in 4D and not enter into the light or into that wormhole or portal. And therefore, they are in a dimension that is the most proximate to Earth, meaning the closest to, and also a dimension that closely resembles our Earth reality, although it's different in key ways. I would say the 4D, in terms of the energetic texture, the energetic resonance, can be quite good, but it can also be very chaotic. It can also be a fearful landscape if you don't enter it intentionally and in your dominion. I could go on and on, but I did a 6-hour YouTube video on fourth dimensional reality once. I don't know how I did that. We were in Houston when I did that. But I can go on and on. Let's hear what you have to say about 4D.
All of that. And plus, so just this perspective that helps me to see a layer of how it works too. So we are, as physically incarnated beings, we are spirit or divine or soul creating a physical form. Often, or it seems to be this feeling that we have a soul inside our body, but in fact, we are a soul, or we are an energetic complex that is, one of the things it is doing is creating physical reality. That physical reality we call 3D. So as you explain in many of our programs and your programs, we are omnidimensional. So as a soul or as a spirit existing in the higher frequencies and the inner frequencies, we exist on all of these. Thus are things that are connected to source, all things. And so when the solar energy discontinues the creation of the physical form, it essentially is like cutting off your fingernail. And so that form then is returned to the earth, the elements, and it is composted like things that dematerialize on this plane. But the energy of all of the dimensions still exists. And so the consciousness that is oriented to 3D is actually 4D. So 3D is the landscape of matter, and 4D is the landscape of thought and feeling energy. And so all of the things that Crystal says, and they show up as energetic manifestations. And so the mental, emotional landscape that is, if it were to be sliced from 3D and 5D and above, then that would be 4D. But we have 4D right now. That is what our mental and emotional energy is creating, is experiencing. And that through so as Crystal said, it can be lovely and fine, but it can be chaotic. Just think about how the collective of all of the minds of just this planet of humans, just think of how chaotic that could be, or how lovely. So, but when it is not continued as Crystal says, it's a portal, it's meant to be connected to the whole of the omnidimensionality. And so if we isolate it, then we are sort of cutting off that higher knowledge and the higher purpose of all of these dimensions. And so being in 4D, you just have a bunch of mental and emotional energy. And if there isn't a physical form that is created, and let's say a ghost or an earthbound stays there, then their purpose starts to sort of eliminate for something that is organized, because it's neither creating a physical form from the higher being self or the soul, nor is it collecting back through that portal to the higher self, to the higher dimensions. And so it's just kind of in this, I guess that's what that concept of purgatory is kind of about. So it could be a place where there's a lot of awesome things happening, but if it's not connected to higher purpose, meaning creating a physical form or being connected to the higher consciousness, then it's likely to be something that is unconscious or consciously negative. Those are kind of the only two choices. As you said, it's not really it doesn't feel like a choice, but it can be an unconscious choice in the way that certain diseases eventually can be, mental diseases or something. That's kind of like being in hell if that's the experience you're having, whether still creating this physical form or whether in that 4D landscape only.
It is a thought form reality,
yes.
or a thought reality, meaning that, and so is 3D for that matter, but it's a dimension where you think something and you experience it fairly rapidly. Whereas here in 3D reality, we have time and space. We have other specified constraints that sort of cause our manifestations to be a bit delayed depending on how we're working that system. But yeah, so 4D is the domain or the landscape of the recently deceased and also the dreamer. So when we sleep at night and we pop out of our physical body and we enter into what I call our next phase light body, it's the light body that we immediately occupy in order to navigate energetically. We are in the fourth dimension. From the fourth dimension, we can think our way to many other spaces, places, and interactions. And so I've heard from a lot of people who've had lucid dreams or have had out-of-body experiences, and they find themselves in this weird landscape, which also, I don't know if you would agree with this, Tricia, takes on a strange kind of color tonality. It's almost like a dimension of silvery moonlight there.
Yes. Like the astral, when you're having the astral experiences. Totally. Silvery moonlight is exact. And I actually do that in my meditation every day. I go and activate that astral, that moonlight. I actually experience it as becoming that moonlight, and almost like I become the element of the moon. So yeah,
that's really interesting. And so you're using the light as a means to get into the fourth dimension, and then from there go into whatever other meditative space or experience you want to have. That's cool. But yeah, a lot of people have had these different experiences and found it quite fearful because of just the resonance there. And so if you find yourself in 4D and you get afraid because you don't recognize it, or it looks like 3D but things are kind of backwards, or you have a sense that there's chaos out there, and you indulge that kind of lower vibrational way of thinking, that fearful thinking, then that is what you immediately start to create there, which is why so many people get afraid and then boop, they bop out of their out-of-body experience. It does take training as somebody who has lucid dreams or who has astral projection experiences to immediately recognize that you're 4D and then intend your way to another experience wherever it is that you want to go. I've found myself in lucid dreams. I found myself in OBEs. And I notice, I know I'm very familiar with what that feels like. I know exactly what that dimension is. And when I do, I ask to visit with my guides, or I ask to visit with my mother, or I ask to have a conversation with Jesus or Buddha or whatever it is. And I immediately get transported. I also want to say about 4D that it's kind of a membrane dimension. And there are so many patterns of energy that pass from the higher dimensions down through it, permeating 4D and then entering 3D. These patterns, these ideas, these inspirations, this channeled information comes down through 4D, but we here in 3D have to actually be occupying 4D sufficiently in order to pull it down and start applying it here in this life. I hope I am making sense.
Yeah.
I often reference Nikola Tesla because he himself said, I am speaking with aliens. I'm getting this technology from aliens. He said this, and he was, because he had an ability to alter sufficiently in terms of brain waves, meditation, active imagination, to alter sufficiently, hang out in the energy of 4D in order to pull down the information coming from 6D, which we won't get into all that craziness, and then bring that into his physical reality and start out picturing it in his life or in the earth realm. So those of us who do meditate and have disciplines around altering ourselves, whether that's in the hypnagogic state or in a meditative session, we are literally in that 4D energy. We can pull down higher information, and we can also use the space of that to enter into higher dimensions or even lower dimensions or other dimensions if we want to.
Yeah, and higher and lower. And yeah, lower dimensions, or I tend to call them inner just because we tend to think lower means bad. But we occupy inner dimensions as well. That's, if we are obviously 3-dimensional right now, then we also are occupying 0, 1, and 2, honestly. So
Yes.
that is a very interesting space as well. I've been in 2D with elemental guides, and that's a freaking interesting space too. That space is like compressed and fast. It's almost like a lot of the frames of fluidity. If you're thinking about a movie frame and there aren't as many frames, it moves that quickly to the next one. And everything is really at the manifestation point. And it's because it somehow is collapsed, like waveform collapse and mirroring in 5D. And so it's taking that experience. And anyway, that's wacky. We're not on the 2D thing, but it's really amazing.
So fun though. We should do a whole podcast on dimensions.
Yes.
It's awesome.
I know. Well, we almost are right now. We'll do
Back
that
to 4D.
Back to
But yeah,
4D.
the beings that you find in
Yes.
4D, which are these earthbound spirits, it's important to say that I do believe most earthbound, I mean, if I were to guess, I do believe most earthbound spirits are there probably by choice, because in my experience, spirit sends emissaries into that space to recover the souls that have not transitioned yet. That's what I know to be true.
Right.
But a lot of those spirits decline actually going into the light, and they do that for a couple of reasons. And sometimes it's just because maybe they have some self-loathing going on, or maybe they didn't actually live a great life, so they're concerned about what might happen on the other side. Maybe they've got a lot of religious dogma that's holding them back. And still other earthbound spirits don't want to transition into the light because they actually prefer the energy of earth. And it's usually the baser or lower energies, things like intoxication, warfare, violence, all of that stuff. They love the energy of that. And so they prefer to stay around it, and they don't want to leave. But then you do have the quality of soul that perhaps dies due to trauma or is confused at the time of their passing. And this can happen, for example, with people who have been altered in their 3D life, maybe through something like dementia, or maybe they were drug users and they were just intoxicated. They were disoriented for a large part of their life. They can find themselves in 4D and not really be able to orient themselves. Although the energetic pattern of that, the stickiness of something like dementia does fade away and they orient. And again, we have emissaries coming in to take those folks out. But you do find some spirits that are troubled or traumatized or just profoundly disoriented, kind of looping around in this space. And therefore, you have people who do something called soul rescue. They'll actually intentionally go into a meditation, pop into 4D, and look for those kinds of spirits and help them into the light or help them to transition. But there's a lot going on in 4D.
And it's important to note that when we release that physical form and the first place in that portal dimension of 4D, that we haven't ascended in our understanding or awareness. So you haven't learned anything new. You're really just a person without a body. And so encountering a ghost or an earthbound, they're really just a person without a body. And I always say, like, when people say, "Oh, what about ghosts? Are you afraid of them?" I'm like, dude, I'm worried about people with bodies. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if they ain't got a body, then I've got something over them. You know what I mean? So you haven't learned anything new yet. That's why if there is religious dogma or self-loathing or fear of punishment, belief in something that is like eternal damnation or I don't deserve, or just, if there's dementia, like you're confused, then that's why you don't have any higher understanding yet. You won't have that until you let that feeling. And when the light opens, it is a wonderful feeling, and guides do come. And so when I've experienced earthbounds, they often are kind of mundane and they're just friggin' confused. They aren't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like just like either an angry person or a confused person or a scared person. And so it is important to know, if you are entering into this, that you know more than them. If you're listening to us now, you know more than they do, because having the knowledge of what it means to cross over, no one would decline it truly. Now, people that are obsessed with the negative energies of this earth, even if they really and truly knew what was across on the other side, then they would find things more fulfilling. And actually, some of the mundane, I've had experiences with ghosts who people, they don't really understand what is going to happen if they choose to move into the light, and their fixation in even a positive way, I love my family, I can't leave my family, and they don't realize if you cross over, that's when you can actually help your family, because you will be returned to the fullness of your I am energy, and then you can be guides, guardians, emissaries. But here in this 4D experience, they're afraid they're leaving them, but you're just a person with, again, a person without a body. You don't have that higher full experience. And so I did soul rescue with my dad when he was crossing over, because he was deeply fearful of what it meant because he had a very painful life, alcoholism, a lot of mental and emotional illness. And he actually popped out of his body and was not going back in, and his body was not expiring for a full day. And I walked him into the light, and he just basically kept his eyes on me and was able to cross over. And everyone who was in the room with him, all the family who are not necessarily like, spiritual teachers or whatever, like some of them were just superstitious. They were experiencing, and they could confirm that they felt that he was no longer there, felt when he left, felt when he was no longer in the room. And so I crossed my dad over, and that's the thing that we in 3D can do, as Crystal's talking about the soul rescue, because these who are there and kind of fixated on the 3D experience, they're paying attention to us. And so we're kind of anchors and bridges to help to cross them over. Whereas the guides of light and emissaries have already made the effort, and they're afraid of them. They think it's some kind of illusion or manifestation and really a trick back into hell or something like that. So that's how us understanding this truth can help them to do that rescuing, because we act as an anchor and a bridge.
Yes. And there is a lot of human fear of hell, and what that looks like, what kind of dimension that is, how many people are going there based on what they believe. But in my experience, and from everything that I've read, and I've studied so much, but I also have personal experience as a channel, and also my mediumship work, that's hell is the dimension you end up in after passing is a dimension that reflects your vibration and frequency at the time of your passing, to include your belief systems, the level of your consciousness, the openness or lack thereof of your heart, and so on and so forth. Whatever you're carrying with you, it contributes to your overall frequency or makes it up totally. And that is what propels you into the dimensional experience you have upon passing. But even that's temporary. And so you do hear people who have had near-death experience talk about experiencing hell. And so hell is real and the devil's real. No. This is just an outpicturing of what your internal frequency was at the time of your passing. But even within that hell, there are emissaries. There's always the opportunity to cry out and ask for more, ask for higher, ask for God, ask for angels, and be removed from that dimension. So hell is truly your personal making. And it's more about fine-tuning your frequency here and now in this experience to be as closely aligned as possible to source energy, to God energy, creator energy, whatever you'd like to call it, and to embody love and tolerance and acceptance, kindness, and all the ways that you can. And then keep that, hold that, stay in that frequency as you trip over into the afterlife, because then you're going right into 5D or higher, right, actually.
And so hell and devil and all of that is really thought form energy.
Yes.
And we can create anything. How many of you have not been scared shitless? That was happening. You created that, or we created that. That was a co-creation, and that isn't in any way blame or shame, because every one of us, it's part of our experience. Can you imagine not having been afraid once in this whole life journey? You wouldn't have really been here then. So let's talk about what thought form is, if that's the first time someone is hearing what this word is. I think when I first heard the word thought form in my metaphysical education, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's so helpful. And it's kind of like a broad category, because we can include under thought form energy really everything that we create with our mental emotional energy. And it's sort of before it becomes matter, but it can still be it's along the framework of becoming matter. But how about you? You tell me, if someone's never heard what thought form is, how do you describe this?
Well, it's based on the reality that energy doesn't die. It doesn't go away. It's just transformed. And so here in our human life, we are always existing in an energy or in a frequency. And those of us who are mindful of this, we try to exist in a frequency, as I was just talking about, which is of love and kindness and service and all of that. And then you have folks who indulge their lower vibrational nature. And so they allow themselves to be in the energy of anger and the energy of fear, the energy of lack, and so on and so forth. And it's about how long you sustain that energy. For those of us that are in the frequency, high vibrational frequency of love, etc., we are creating energetic patterns. That energy is doing something as we're vibrating in it. It's creating things. And for us, that might look like opportunities, possibilities, serendipity, all of that. And also this can be deities, actually, and beings that we worship, or servitors, and so on and so forth. For the folks that are on the other end of the spectrum and who are hanging out in really deeply depressive states in a sustained way, or hanging out in fear, hanging out in rage and anger, and indulging this part of their nature, they are also creating patterns of energy. And we can call these tulpas. I call them thought forms. Mm-hmm. The more you indulge the energy, the more you run this energy in a sustained way, the more you develop these thought forms. And so what starts off is almost what looks like that little Brillo patty kind of energy above Pigpen's head in the Snoopy comic, right? Yeah. Some weird chaotic energy, because you're in a weird chaotic energy. What starts off is that actually has an opportunity, if you indulge your lower vibration, to turn into an autonomous being, yes. A being
sophisticated to some degree.
What did you say?
I said sophisticated to some degree.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very sophisticated. Mm-hmm. In the earlier stages of development, it's becoming somewhat sentient. Mm-hmm. And then it realizes that it is dependent on the energy that has created it. And so it seeks to be fed by that same energy. And as it's gaining in intelligence, it needs you to stay in the energy that allowed it to be created. And so if that was fear, then it needs you to stay afraid. If that's intoxication, then it needs you to stay intoxicated so you continue to feed it. And if you do, these thought forms become more and more sophisticated and autonomous to the point where they don't even need you anymore. They're full-blown entities. This is what poltergeists are. Mm-hmm. You have, usually it's teenage, very hormonal girls who have this inner frequency that's pretty wonky and in a sustained way, causing all of these things to happen in the house. You've got noises that are being made, knocks on the wall, things are being tipped over. There seems to be a ghost. It's not a ghost. The call is coming from inside the house. It's you, and it's the thought form that you're creating and you're feeding in a sustained way. So there's all kinds of different thought forms, but those are the ones that I usually, that's what I mean when I talk about them. And I can actually go into different spaces and I can see them. And in Hawaii, we have something called uhani noho, and they are intelligent energies that usually hang out within the body, sometimes within wounds, but you can also see uhani noho, and you can see these thought forms collecting up near the ceilings in houses. I've walked through houses remotely and in person, and I've seen them everywhere, these weird Brillo pad energies, sometimes with features, and I just clear them. But the problem is I can clear them, and I can clear your house, but if you don't stop signaling whatever it is that created them, you just start creating more of them.
Right. It's like if you got a gastro bypass surgery, well, yeah, you're going to, or if you got liposuction, let's say, or something like that, where you kind of remove part of the issue, but your habits remain the same. Well, then it's just going to reorganize itself because free will, and it will magnetize that to the intention and to the patterns. And so as Crystal's talking about it, on a very basic level, like what we're here to do is to manipulate energy, to create energy, and as physical beings, see it out pictured in a physical reality. So on the positive side, we can, those positive thought patterns and emotional and feeling patterns that we continue to, it's like again, waveform collapse. So it's beginning to become somewhat particular. and it can become something very positive in our lives. So we can use thought form experiencing, thought form creation, and that's what we're here to do, to benefit us. And when we're doing it on the positive side, then it actually is an omnidimensional experience, because it is being created out of love and connection. But when it's being done out of fear or some kind of separation energy, then it's actually not omnidimensional, and it is arrested more in that 4D landscape. That does not mean that when we give it power, then it has power. When we are unconscious of it, when we give it our sovereignty, then it just has it. And it can feel as though, like all of us again have experienced, that we can't stop our habits, our patterns, or we're being compelled in some way because we have given our sovereignty, our ability, or our dominion over, even if it's not consciously, we don't understand it, it's out of miseducation. So you mentioned the thought form getting so sophisticated that it could become an entity. And even it can attract a sophisticated, more sophisticated being to match it and utilize that, almost like portal, that as a feeding tube to it, of needing that fear energy.
Yes, absolutely. Not only that, but these fully autonomous thought forms can bop away from their host. They don't need the host anymore. They can go to the next door neighbor where there's similar energy and start feeding there. But they are quite intelligent, so they can actually manipulate the circumstances and conditions in the various places in order to set up more of what it is that they want, which is this energy. But what we must keep in mind is that which we create, we can also uncreate. And even though energy never dies or is never destroyed, we can dissipate these thought forms sufficiently by changing our signal. And this really applies to absolutely every aspect in life. I mean, look at something like, God forbid, politics. You have people in politics who are there with a high vibration. They are seeking to shift it and change it. And through that, they are able to make these great changes. But then you have people in politics who are just perpetually pissed off all the time. And so their frequency is anger and frustration. And even though they're in politics thinking they're changing it, they're actually just creating more problems and more chaos. In every way, this has to do with manifestation. If I want a new house, I can create the thought form by envisioning it and by putting my energy into it and by desiring it and loving it and feeling my way into the creation of it. That's also part of the process as well. And it really speaks to how profoundly powerful we are, which takes us back to kind of the first couple of weeks in the intuitive intensive. Unless you know how powerful you are, you probably shouldn't play around in the various fields, because you have to have an understanding that you're the one who's controlling it. You're the one who's creating it. And sure, maybe you got yourself into a pickle and you've got a whole house filled with uhani noho, or a whole house filled with thought forms. Well, you can clear that and you can rearrange that. You can change the inner world and your frequency and start living the life that you truly want to live in practical ways, and also, again, these magical ways that we talk about.
And it is as easy as kind of recognizing that the true full landscape of omnidimensionality is love, is connection to creator energy. And having that understanding pop in, then as one of my guides described it to me once, if you can imagine the most possibly frightening thought form entity or whatever, it looks like a child in a Halloween mask. It's ridiculous. It's silly. It means nothing, because you are occupying the truth. And that's what you call dominion.
Yes.
Running that dominion energy. You have dominion because you are fully omnidimensional. If you're in the standing in as a body of 3D, you are also occupying 4D, and you are occupying 5 and all above, because that is who you are. But if you are encountered by one of these thought forms, these fearful or entities or ghosts or something that are either fearful, separated, or unconscious, well, you are fully conscious, and the dark cannot cast out the light. And it's simple as that. It really is truly that simple. You can't come into a room and turn the dark on. You can only turn the light on.
I love that. Yes. Perfect love casts out all fear, which is one of the main reasons that before you get into any spiritual work that you truly understand who it is that you are. And it's about fine-tuning your frequency to source energy, fine-tuning your frequency to love. And not only does everything begin to arrange around you accordingly, but it also gives you the strength, the conviction to create as you want. And I've been confronted by the errant spirit in my life. I've had some scary situations pop up, but it's really just a matter of, yes, being startled, but then immediately getting into, oh, no. I am the consciousness having this experience. I am the consciousness commanding this spirit, this experience. So much so that spirits, as I've said before, spirits really don't, it's boring over here. It gets a little boring. I'm like, a little more would be kind of cool to have different experiences, but they really don't try it.
In your house, because you don't, homie, don't play that. And so you're like,
I'm just not, I don't buy it.
Come at me, bro. Somebody come at me, bro, a little bit. I'm bored.
Come at me, bro. Let me show you what I got, but it doesn't really happen. I don't want to tempt negativity or anything like that, but I really am in many ways fearless because I understand how things work and I understand how important I am. And for a program like we offer, if you just want to feel that power within yourself, if you just want to learn how you can create the life that you want, forgetting about all the clairs, forgetting about learning about angels and ascended masters and all that jazz. The most important part is understanding your role in all of these things and how you can control it. Wouldn't you say? I get so excited when I talk about it because I feel people live in a very disempowered state, letting life happen to them, letting the nation happen to them, letting the news happen to them, being puppeted by all the energies. And this is what we're creating collectively. We need some conscious people who are intentional about who they are and in full awareness of their power to start creating different things, thought forms, etc.
And that thought form, beliefs in themselves are a thought form energy. And again, we can create positive beliefs and still be the master of it so that we can uncreate those beliefs so that we can create something new, so we can move on to something else interesting. But you can create really open-ended ones. That's what affirmations are about. You are kind of calling in a pattern of energy to facilitate that full connection. I wonder what else can happen is one of yours in a positive way. The universe is always conspiring for my highest good. I don't know why my life is so amazing. Things are always working out for me. It's really and truly possible. And you know what? When you are able to just relax your energy, it's a surrender. So then you surrender to the remember and say, I don't know how to remember that I'm omnidimensional. Then love is really and truly the only thing that there is, but I'm willing. That alone, and boom, you're a magician.
Yes, I love that.
This is like required for all of you who if I'm getting to this point, then you've already listened to it. For the intuitive intensive students, this episode is required. We're going to post it in the group. Wow, this has been so good.
Are we done?
No, we got as long as we want, but we've been going.
I was just talking about. You just mentioned belief systems.
Yeah.
Being energy, and they are carefully constructed and also sophisticated patterns of energy that we literally house in our physical and mental being and in our spiritual connection as well. Meaning we are carrying around, which we call the bodies that are within the body. We are carrying around these patterns of energy that keep us looping in certain behaviors and understandings, awareness or lack of awareness. One of the main things that we do as we make that spiritual connection and lean into our relationship with spirit is we get into the bodies within the body, and we, just as you said, I don't know how to do it, but I'm willing to do it. Yeah. All the stuff that I'm carrying around that I know about and that I don't know about, I'm willing for that to be examined by the light, because again, perfect love casts out all fear. I'm willing to put it up on the altar. I'm willing to be truthful as I look at it, because only when I'm truthful as I look at it and I'm willing to clear it, spirit will do that, by the way. You don't need to know how to heal yourself or clear yourself or get rid of patterns. Spirit, that's the light's job, and the light knows how to do what the light knows how to do. It's about being willing to put it up there for the examination and being willing to let go of it. When you do that, you create literal space in your physical body. I actually feel that as an opening up. When I let go of some long-held belief that doesn't serve me anymore, I feel my chest open up. I feel my belly open up. There's breath in me, and I can feel that. And now there's room. There's space for spirit to come in or for the light to come in and fully occupy. When that happens, it's another turn of the dial, my friend. It's your frequency going higher and higher and higher. But yes, these beliefs, just like thought forms, just like spirits, they have a form, they have a structure, and it's within us, and it's up to us to clear them. Or, to be willing to.
Be willing, yes, exactly, to have the surrender and the acceptance of, whatever, just to relax and relent and calm. And my work as a hypnotherapist, which is we always are kind of when we're facilitating people in energy healing or meditation or anything when we are in this state. But so much of it is really just allowing yourself, as being an allowance and being relaxed and calm, because you call back then. We talk about signal and frequency. When we have the patterns of energy that we are feeding, it's like static on an old analog radio. Or, we can even hear that in satellite or in digital. And when we just release that, then the energy that is arrested in the static come right back in there, and now it's a clear signal. And with the surrender, with the relax, with the willingness to let spirit, to let all of love and connection, source energy, to do what it does, then it goes in alignment. That's what we call alignment, and it moves. That life force energy, that signal moves in the efficient direction that God energy, creator energy, knows, because that is the perspective of all of the universe. From this single little small perspective of being a human, I can't see the entirety of the universe, but I can allow it, and then it will. This is the magic that we become. Your frequency becomes more fine-tuned, and like you said, it raises now, and now you're on a whole new playing field of something else really cool.
Yes, now you're intentionally creating the things that you want, and that includes your abilities. That includes turning on all the different, what I call lights in the house. The whole house lights up, and your clairsentience is alive, and your claircognizance is fully present, and you're clairvoyant, and you're clairaudient, and all of these things start to happen. And the more you work with your frequency and your understanding and your relationship, the more sustained the lights are, and the lights are on in the house. It is all connected to the next thing. I wanted to ask you really quick, and I don't think we'll have time enough to talk about this whole subject now, but maybe I can tease it out and we can come back together. This will give us an excuse to come back together. Have you ever heard of the Lords of Karma?
No, not. I can feel into. Well, we're telepathic, so I'm feeling what you're saying, but no, I haven't heard those words literally.
Okay, so I was listening to Art Bell. I love Art Bell. I listen to Art Bell all the time. May he rest in peace. And he had, I want to say it was John Lear on it. Doesn't matter. He had a guest on who told Art Bell, when you die, don't go into the light. It's a trick.
Oh.
And that you will be visited by friends and family and beings that might emit pure love, but it's a trick. Don't go into the light, because it is essentially a reincarnation recycling machine. And once you do that, you're kind of back on the loop. Instead, go away from the light. Now, once I listened to that session with Art Bell, of course, I got really curious and I got a little pained by it. And as soon as I felt the fear, I'm like, oh, well, that's just false. Whatever, the fear is false.
Yeah.
But I was very curious to learn more about it. And I've since gone on a journey to read up about it and the Lords of Karma. And I would like to talk, because we're talking about 4D. This happens in 4D. We're talking about beings that exist there. The Lords of Karma are there. And maybe at a later date, we can kind of dive into it and I can tell you what I've learned about it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I've seen on YouTube, I've seen in different forums that people are genuinely worried and concerned about this. And I would like to talk about it sometime in the future, just to tease it out.
Yes, please. No, seriously. I don't want to talk to you about it offline, because I want you to, I want it to be fresh in a forum like this. So can we please do it next
Absolutely.
week?
Yes.
Maybe we'll do another episode next week, because that'll still be right before the intuitive intensive, and then people can get an idea. Maybe
I say yes to that. I'll do it. I'll be here.
That's fascinating. And, and I do feel so I want to hear more about it, because as I just feel into that, just on the surface, and again, from my thought form, from my beliefs, from my experience, that I mean, I also don't see anything wrong with reincarnation, obviously. And I think that that's a great joy. And what we tend to, like you said, from your experience, from what we tend to understand is you cross into the light, you do your life review, then you kind of decide what you'll do next, which could be being a spirit guide, an emissary. It could be going to school in the universe, or it could be to go back in, you know what I mean, to continue on those divine directives. So yeah, I'm really fascinated to see what this other question is about. It all questions are welcome, right? We should question everything.
And I think people are talking about it, and we should too. I do remember Art Bell saying that nothing has ever frightened him more than that concept.
Oh, well, see, that's already not good, man.
Yeah, that's already not good. But yeah, there are different details associated with it, and we can talk about it. So for anybody else who has heard about that, we will get to it because there's nothing to fear at all.
Never, right?
Mm-mm.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so next episode, that's what we're going to do.
Words of Karma, let's do it.
All right. Well, once again, the Intuitive Intensive, the link is in the description, however you're listening or watching. And Crystal Anne Compton. We're going to, Crystal and I are going to create a commune. And we're going to we don't live next to each other. That's why she's coming in on video.
We have to figure out where the commune's going to be, though, because we can't agree on where we want to live. But yeah, wouldn't that be so cool?
Yes. And we take care of one of those animals, because I just feel so much. So we do these days or evenings where it's like, we're in our virtual cubicles and we're just like, hey, what do you, hey, yeah, oh, hey. Or evenings where we're joking back and forth with our husbands and we're having our virtual glass of wine. And I like bodies. And I did see you last week, but I already miss you.
I know. And I think that the reason, the lab is so cool and our subscribers and viewers are so cool is because we have so much in common with them. Mm-hmm. They like to have a glass of wine, maybe not, but they like to sit around, talk about this stuff too. They want to learn more. They're so curious and they're open. And so that's why this is so fun.
Yeah.
We need to be closer to one another.
Once again, and that was our intention going in. We created that thought form and that pattern developed and manifested. We set the intention for this episode to be fun, and that's what the Intuitive Intensive is overall. 100% is fun. That's what I actually call in before I do any session. This is going to be fun. Even if you at some point in your session or your class or something are crying, those are fun tears because they're cathartic, and nothing feels better than that. And
productive and wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, shifting.
Yes, and our community already, the lab, of course, but the Intuitive Intensive community already is so fantastic, and I can't wait to get to know everybody in there. And I also want to say this is just the first of 3 intensives that we're offering this year, and of course, the goal is to offer these fantastic, really wonderful, and I mean, you cannot find a program out there that is better than this and what we're offering, certainly for the price. But we have 3 this year. We're going to have the intensives next year. It's just an ongoing opportunity. So whenever you're watching this or whenever you're listening to this, go to thelightworkerslab.com and check out what's coming up, because something will be coming up and you should be a part of it if this kind of stuff interests you.
Yes. I'm going to plug one thing before we sign off, and that is my Mystic Arts Academy, where we are meeting twice per month, talking about all kinds of weirdness. This is not a program that is, it's more free form. So like last week, I don't even remember. I'm out of it. But, like one week we talked about cosmic elementals. What the heck is that? We will be talking about the clairs. We talk about numerology or, channeling something. But we also are meeting about weekly, and I lead a group hypnojourney and or meditation. And Crystal, you have to join sometime, because
I would love to.
It's actually kind of turning into like an LL research group, like the raw material channelers, because we're having these experiences. It's a small group, but we're having these experiences with one another, and so I'm excited about that. And as it's not very much money, so it's certainly wouldn't take up the time or attention away from doing these intensives. It's sort of like a supplemental, but I just love it because I get to be weird, and we get to be we're really weird in the intensive too.
I'm getting some deep FOMO. I'd like to be there. Absolutely.
Okay. I'll make sure you get I'll let you know about it.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, it's super fun. Okay. Well, I guess then that will be this episode. I had so much fun. That was super fun. Playing in 4D and calling out those entities.
You didn't even get to like a tenth of it.
I know, right?
Like there's so much to talk about, but we will get into that in the program for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So go check it out. You guys, even if you're just a little bit curious, go read about it, because I think even just reading the information page, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's all to learn. If it's not for you this time, then let that be a seed for your spiritual growth in whichever way that it is developing for you, because we need you. We need you to be you.
Yes, ma'am. We do. I need you.
Yeah.
Very much. And I want you so much. Sorry, I'm getting crazy.
And I want you to want me. Oh, sorry. It's going somewhere else now.
It is.
Okay.
Love.
That is this episode. Thank you, Anne Compton, intuitive channel spiritual teacher,
so
founder of the Lightworkers Lab. Lightworkers Lab link is also in the description. So go check it out. Go join and get in there and mix it up and have fun and be you. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.